And hello again, everyone. Welcome to tonight's presentation on No More Knots, self-release techniques for those with SCI. My name is Franklin. I'm one of the two co-founders of the Northern California Spinal Cord Injury Foundation, also known as NorCal SCI. Excited to have Rachel with us once again. And I'm going to go through a few sort of housekeeping items that we typically do. So as always, these presentations are made possible thanks to a generous grant that we received from the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. We're grateful to them for their generosity. For those of you that are wondering why everyone is muted, it's so that we could eliminate all background distractions. But rest assured, there will be a Q&A session at the end of Rachel's presentation. And so any questions that you may have, please feed them to me through the chat feature on your screen. And finally, as always, we are recording this session, and that way, if you need to jump off the presentation or those individuals that weren't able to take part tonight, we will send a recording of this presentation plus a couple of slides that Rachel is going to go over with you tonight that we thought would be good for us to send. So all of that stuff is going to be in your inbox first thing tomorrow morning. Okay, so without further ado, let me jump in there and introduce Rachel. She's a nationally certified Pilates teacher, a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and a movement teacher specializing in working with people with neurological deficits, especially those with spinal cord injuries. She's currently pursuing her license for massage therapy, and this is just a perfect topic for her to address as part of that work. So Rachel, welcome again, and it's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Franklin. And thanks to NorCal SCI and Christopher Reeve Foundation. As I always say, I love these presentations because it really ties in the educational component with the movement component, which just feels really accessible. All right. Give me 1 sec. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. That might take just a minute or so to load.
All right, you're good.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Oops. Let me go back. Okay, great. Is that okay? I think that is, yeah, great. Okay. Making sure we're all seeing the same screen. Awesome. So we're going to be talking about, No More Knots is just kind of a creative title, but these are self-release techniques for you to be able to take this kind of work into your own hands. I mean, that's really what I'm trying to teach in all of these workshops is how can you take things that might be bugging you, things you want to work on, and how can you become more self-accountable, have the tools you need to release your body, release tension you might be holding, and then bring more movement into your day to day. Today, we're going to be focusing mainly on a little bit of head, neck, chest, kind of right under the collarbones, belly, and then we might even get to the backs of the shoulders a bit. But just a couple things to keep in mind with these. So let's see, I believe it was actually the very first or second presentation we did, probably almost exactly a year ago, or maybe a little over a year ago. I did a breath, mindful movement, meditation, and also self-release techniques in that first or second presentation. I highly recommend revisiting that if you haven't already. Doing those release techniques combined with these release techniques that we're going to be doing today are super powerful. I'm going to weave a couple of those in that we did about a year ago just to refresh people's memory. And then we're definitely going to layer on. Okay. So why is self-release so important? Okay, so we're just going to talk about some of the benefits. So any kind of massage, whether you're doing it on yourself, you're using a tool like a release ball of some sort, or if you have somebody helping you out, all self-release body work, massage world modalities are going to help to relax your body. They're going to release any excessive tension that your muscles might be holding. This kind of work has been found to boost your immune function, to boost your circulation. It can help lower heart rate. It can help lower blood pressure. Oops. There we go. Okay. And then one of the biggest things, I'm going to talk about this in another slide, is it really helps increase your body awareness and your sensory input. So I've kind of been weaving this theme through almost every single one of my presentations about body awareness, your proprioception, where your limbs are in time and space, and something called interoception, which is our body's ability to sense and feel what's going on inside of our body, are two really important things to work on that can actually help us move better in our lives. It can help decrease pain. It can take away that level of threat that we might feel if we've got an injured shoulder or something like that. Um, it helps the brain reorganize itself, and it helps the brain create what we call a more efficient motor output. Really, that's just a fancy way of saying the more accurate and more precise and clear that sensory input we have coming into the body, the better the brain can do a job of reorganizing itself, interpreting that information, and then creating a motor output. So, doing things like self release techniques or any kind of self touching palpation kind of work helps to increase that sensory input and that body awareness. And it helps you know where you are. Am I strong enough to pick this up? If I lean over this way, am I going to be okay? So, really important for day to day movements. Okay. And then the second big thing here is healing requires a calm nervous system. So, when we talk about the movement world and doing a home exercise program or healing an injured shoulder, or trying to get rid of stress and extra tension in your body, before we do any of that, it's really important to take our nervous system and to drop it into more of a relaxed state. Okay, so you might have heard me talk before about how we have part of our autonomic nervous system has two different branches. We have our fight and flight nervous system, and we have our rest and digest nervous system. Most of us, especially in midst of pandemic and all of the things we have going on in the world today and the way our society is moving, most of us are living in our fight and flight nervous system, which is our sympathetic nervous system. Heart rates increase, blood pressures increase, we're alert, we're stressed, we're anxious, we're nervous. We're not breathing into our low belly, we're breathing out of our neck and our chest. And we're living in this, I like to think of it almost as like a higher vibrational state. It's not this calm and grounded state. When we're in this higher fight and flight nervous system, it's really hard for our bodies, our nervous systems, and our tissues to receive healing work. And by healing work, I mean body work, but I also mean movement. Because remember, if you're stressed out and tense and anxious and nervous, you're probably not going to want to go through a full movement session, whatever that looks like for you. So, being able to drop our bodies into more of our calm, our grounded, our resting and digesting nervous system is really the first step of, well, of really any movement routine that you might be pulling into your daily lives, but is especially the first step when it comes to some kind of a self care, self release protocol. Okay, so how to use self release techniques? So, kind of like I was talking about with pulling in more sensory input, it starts with setting an intention. Okay, so for example, for this session today, what is your intention? What do you want to get out of this? Do you have a part of your body that's feeling a little tense and tight? Maybe the right side of your neck. Maybe your stomach feels like it's in knots. Maybe the back of your shoulder doesn't feel great today. Whatever it might be, what is your intention for this class or for any movement or release work session that that you set for yourself? By setting an intention, it brings more attention to that area, which creates that feedback loop of now we've got more sensory input into the body. Okay, This is the area I want to work. I'm pointing to my shoulder. Okay, I'm feeling this, and I'm going to rub, I'm going to feel, I'm going to use a release ball. I'm aware of it. I'm bringing more sensory input in. The top of my shoulder is now talking to me. It's getting a little warmer as I'm rubbing it. And now my brain is able to map that area. Oh, okay, this is my right shoulder. It's feeling a little wonky today. It feels worse when I bring it overhead, et cetera, et cetera. It gives the brain that information, and then it can help us create a more efficient motor output. Meaning, after I work on the shoulder, for example, can I then lift that arm overhead with a little bit more ease, more smoothness, less pain? If I'm going for a weightlifting program, can I press more weight overhead? Is there less clicking? I know a lot of folks out there hear some interesting sounds in their shoulders or their back when they're moving. So that's kind of the line that we're trying to pull in: intention to attention, to help settle and calm the body and the nervous system, and then to help with the movement. Okay, so how does this work start? It's always really important to start with a body scan. And I'll give you a couple of, I talked a lot about body scans and ways to assess and reassess your movement. In that session I mentioned at the beginning of class, it was maybe about a year ago. Franklin, maybe we can throw that in the email we send out to everybody. We're just going to review that, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about assess, reassess. Let me just actually click through these. Yeah. Okay. So starting with any kind of a body scan, that body scan can look however you want it to look. It can look like, okay, I'm going to do a head scan from my head all the way down to my feet. And I encourage you, even if you don't have sensation below your injury level, or if you're more single-sided, I still encourage you to do a body scan through your whole body. Okay, so thinking to yourself, what might my feet feel like if they can sense the carpet beneath my feet? What might my sit bones feel like if they can feel the chair under my sit bones? So you're just inviting in more curiosity as you're going through this body scan. It also might be kind of more sensory input related. What am I hearing around me? What am I smelling? Um, what is my left and my right side of my body telling me? How does the top part of my body feel compared to the bottom part of my body? How do my hands and feet feel? Okay, so just there's so many different, and there's a bunch of meditation apps out there and whatnot, but just in general, just doing a scan, it's like an inventory. What parts of my body feel good? What parts of my body maybe don't feel so good? And what parts of my body feel neutral? Like, it's not really speaking to me whether or not I have sensation there. I can't really feel the middle part of my back right now. Maybe if I really think about it, maybe if I rub it, that will come alive a little bit more. And then talking about a check recheck. So this is a self-assessment tool. This kind of work can be the most beneficial before and after you do a release work session. So in the beginning of the release work session today, we're going to do a little bit of breath work. We're going to do some shoulder shrugs, arm raises, some rotations. And as we go through these movements, you're just going to be noticing your body. Can I rotate more to my right than I can to my left? Does it cause me any pain to tilt my head up and down, or to shrug my shoulders up and down? Or if I have any standing athletes out there, how does it feel to do a squat, or maybe to transfer from one surface to another? So you can use any kind of a self-assessment tool that you'd like, but I encourage you to use these tools, so using that list of examples there, so that you know which of these self-release techniques helped you. In a perfect world, and you'll be able to do this after class, but after every single one of these self-release techniques, you would be doing a check and a recheck. How does my neck feel? How do my shoulders feel, et cetera, et cetera? So just using whichever check-in makes the most sense for you for that body part. And then the last thing I want to say, actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm just going to rewind real quickly. when it comes to no, I'll save that for later. I'm gonna keep moving. I'll save that for later. The last thing here is less is more. Okay, I want you to think of your bodies and the tissues of your bodies kind of like a turtle. I use this turtle metaphor of if you were to poke a turtle and try to massage a turtle and take your fist and really get in there, there's no way the turtle would like that. The turtle would retreat and it would stay inside of its shell until they felt safe to come out again. Okay, our tissues aren't really different. Um, there is a mindset out there of if it doesn't kill you, it makes it stronger. Okay, I don't believe in that. If you've taken my workshops before, that probably is very clear by now. Listening to the body and sinking in only until you feel your body push back. So for example, if I've got a release ball and I'm pressing into the front of my shoulder, I'm not trying to dig, I'm not looking for it to hurt. I'm just looking for my body to respond to it. I want my body and my tool, being my release ball, to be having a conversation with each other. The nervous system and the nerves don't like to be squished or compressed or pounded on. So just an invitation here to be gentle with yourself as we do some of this release work. And if it feels right for you to add more pressure anywhere, you can always add more pressure, but starting on the side of less pressure, less is more, and just seeing how you're feeling with that, and then maybe going from there. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Okay, great. So what tools do I use? Okay, again, I just really want to emphasize the whole less is more model. So using a soft ball instead of for example, a lacrosse ball that feels like it's made of cement and can really can really do some damage if you're not paying attention. So for example, I'm just going to hold up a couple of balls I have, just because it's hard to see the balls on this screen, but you can see, and I'm squishing the ball right now, you can see that there's a good amount of squish. This ball is filled with air. This is a Franklin ball. It's the green balls on the left there are Franklin balls, not named after Franklin from NorCal SCI, but they might as well be. But it's squishy, it's soft here. There's a whole method called the Franklin method. In fact, I think I recommended the Franklin Theraband in a couple of workshops ago for the resistance band workshop. They've got a bunch of tools on their website. We can always add links for that also. The second ball on there, that black one, is called a Corgis ball. I've got a couple that emulate that. I don't have exactly the Corgis ball, although that is a great ball. Again, the ball I'm holding up here, and this I can't even find online. It's got a brand, but I wasn't able to find it. Again, it's squishy. It's a little bit bigger, just a tiny bit bigger than this orange one. It's squishy. It's got some stickiness to it. It's so that if I put it on my skin and twist it, it's able to grip my skin, which is what we're going for. We want these balls to be able to grip the skin, which is actually what's providing some of that release in there. And then lastly, this is also slightly similar to the Corgis ball, and it's slightly deflated, but this is just another blow up. This is maybe an 8-inch inflatable ball. Again, it's sticky. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's kind of sticky. It's soft. It's really good to lie on top of. I'm going to be showing some techniques on the floor tonight. This is a great ball to lie over. If you're going to be getting if you are just going to be getting one ball, I recommend getting the Corgis ball. If you're into this and things are feeling really good as you start to explore, then it's nice. And these are so cheap on Amazon. They're just a few bucks. The ones on the slide are maybe $8 or $9. So exploring like what squishiness feels good for your body. Because remember, the squishiness of my body and my tissue is going to be very different from other people's. So other people might need softer balls, while someone might like a slightly harder ball. Okay. So what are some of the goals of self-release? Really, the main goal is we're just trying to create more space in that area. If I'm working, we're going to do a release tonight working on your collarbone, your clavicle, which is this bone right in the front. When we're doing that release, the goal of that is to create more space for the nerves to pass under, for the arteries to pass under, more space for the muscles that attach to the bottom and to the top of that clavicle, and more space for your shoulder at the end, at the most distal part of that clavicle. So all of these release techniques are either trying to calm the nervous system or they're trying to create more space in the body. That can be space for nerves, for vasculature, for fascia, which is just your connective tissue, for fluids. Remember, really, we've got so many tubes, especially in our head, neck, armpit, and hip area. So how can we create more space for those tubes? Tubes being arteries, veins, nerves, all of that good, the lymph system. Okay, because when we can create more space for this, we allow the nerves and the nervous system and the fascia, which is highly innervated by nerves, we allow all of those things to free up and communicate more. Think of it almost as if you're in a traffic jam and it's deadlocked, it's gridlock traffic, and how are you gonna get from point A to point B? Well, maybe there's a side route you could take. You could get off the freeway and go up and over. Okay, so we're looking to create more space, more fluidity, so that that nervous connection, that nervous system and fascial connection can get out of the traffic jam. How can we free up that space so that the muscles have a greater ability to connect with each other, and for the nervous system to be able to connect to the muscles, especially as we get lower down the body, depending on your injury level. Okay, and then I mentioned this, but again, the other main, and almost more important and really first goal that we want to target is shifting from this fight and flight nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, to your rest and digest nervous system, or your parasympathetic nervous system. Really important. Yeah, and then what we're just looking for, so as you're going through tonight, we're just looking for where in your body does it feel tender, where you press and you're like, ooh, that did not feel good. That is tender there. Where did you press and maybe it slightly took your breath away? Is anything causing pain or shooting sensations? We definitely want to stay away from those sensations. Or maybe just a restricted area, like I'm trying to lift the arm up higher. I'm trying to bring more thoracic rotation into my movement. How can I do that? So that's another good goal for these self-release techniques. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, that's great. Okay. And then just one more thing to add on here too. I realized that a lot of this work, doing body scans, really connecting to the inside of your body, to the outside of your body, can sometimes be edgy for people. Whether that's your neuropathic pain, chronic pain, an injury that you've had for a while. So I just want to acknowledge that that pain and that those sensations can still be there, and we can still invite in this healthy amount of curiosity, of listening to the body, of dropping into the body and seeing what the body might need or what we can do differently to address some of those problem areas. Okay, so just again, really want to encourage you to listen to your body tonight. Don't push anything. A lot of this work is light. It might even feel like you're not doing much. But again, tonight we're just, especially if you haven't done release work before, we're just starting the conversation between the tissues in your body that maybe haven't been massaged or touched in a while and your nervous system. So err on the side of gentleness and then ease in as it feels good for you. Okay. So these are the techniques we're going to be going through tonight. Sure, I'm not missing anything. Okay. I'm going to leave that up there. If you want to snap a photo on your phone, go ahead and go for it. We're just going to walk through these in order, but I'm going to take away the PowerPoint so that you can see me clearly. Okay, so I'll just give you maybe another second or so if you want to snap a photo of that.
And we'll be sending this slide to everyone, Rachel. So no
Yeah.
worries if you can't take a snapshot of it.
Totally. Okay, great. All right, give me 1 second to get set up. There we go. I have to make sure that I'm leading you through all of the movements in the right order, so I just got to get this set up on my end. Okay. Great. So I just want you to start, and actually if you've got your release balls, make sure that those are handy. You can be in a seated position, whether you're in a chair or on any seated surface. If you also would like to come down to the floor, I invite you to do so. I'm going to be going back and forth on about 4 of these, showing you the floor version and the seated version. The very last one will be just a floor version, but we'll wait to do that till the end. Okay, so we're just going to start with a bit of a body scan, and then we're going to do that check-in with some of the movements, how are the shoulders feeling, and then we're going to jump into some of these. So I just want you to come to a seated or a standing grounding position of some sort. And I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes. And we're just going to start with your breath. So feel free to put your hands on your low belly. And just noticing where your breath is right now. So as you inhale, do you feel like that inhale is going into your neck, your chest, or your belly? And again, not judging, just noticing. And noticing if that breath feels restricted in any way. Maybe you can feel the breath more on one side of your body versus the other. Maybe in general, it's just kind of hard for you to breathe right now, whether that's due to allergies or a restricted torso or the position that you're in. Okay, so you're just taking note of that right now. And then we're just going to find a body's head to toes. So just bringing your attention to your scalp. And to your face, noticing how your jaw and your cheekbones are feeling. This can be a place we store a lot of tension. How is your neck feeling right now? And feel free to wiggle or move any of these areas that I'm walking you through. And how does that neck feel? And then how do the tops of your shoulders feel? Maybe the front of your chest, your upper back, your arms, your hands. How does your belly feel? Is your stomach making any sounds? Can you sense how your low back is doing? And then inviting you to stay with me, whether or not you have sensation in the lower body, but seeing if you can sense your hips. Can you feel your sit bones on the seat? Can you sense where your thighs are or how your thighs and your knees feel? And how about your shins and calves? And then dropping into your ankles and feet. And just sitting with all of that for a second here and noticing what in your body feels good. What parts of your body feel fluid, feel mobile, feel strong? What parts of your body don't feel so good? And what parts of your body feel quiet, feel neutral, and aren't talking to you? Okay, let's take one more inhale. One more exhale. And we'll open the eyes. Okay, great. So we're going to go through just a handful of those. Check and recheck tools that we have. I'm just going to back up a little bit so you can see me more. Okay, so we're going to start with just a shoulder shrug. Okay, so just shrugging the shoulders up like you're saying, I don't know, and down. Okay, and with all these movements, you're thinking, how does this feel? Is it crunchy? Does one side feel different than the other side? Is it painful? Is it harder to breathe in one position than the other? Okay, good, and relax. And then we're going to turn just the head and neck to the left. If you have hardware in your head and neck, you might want to skip this one. And then turn just your head and neck to the right. Okay, and do that back and forth a few times. Does one side feel different than the other? Is there pain? Does it feel not smooth? Or does this feel pretty good to you? Okay. And then we can nod the head up and down. And again, how does this feel for you? Okay, and back to the center. We'll do a few overhead arm raises. So just lifting both arms up to the sky with as straight as arms as you can, and then back down. And just doing that a couple times. What is my, how easeful of this? How smooth is this? Does the shoulder that always bugs me, how does that shoulder feel today? What's my speed of movement? What feels natural to me? Yeah. I'm going to have you come into a goalpost position with your arms. If you're able to, you can also keep the arms low if that's more accessible to you. And you're just going to find an internal and external rotation, just pivoting the hands up and down. If keeping your arms low is easier for you, it will look something more like this, as if you're keeping your palms up, serving something out, and then bringing it back in. And again, how does that feel? I even like to look at my arms for this one, okay? Left arm's going a little further back than the right, good to know, etc., etc. Okay, and then we'll bring both arms in front of us, hands are touching. We can also cross the arms over the chest if that's easier for you. And you're gonna turn and rotate to your left, and then turn and rotate to your right. Okay, so again, how far can I get in each of these rotations? Is it hard to breathe when I rotate? Okay, so just noticing, noticing, noticing. Yeah. Let's see, what other ones am I forgetting? If I have any standing athletes out there, you have the option too to do some sit to stand. So maybe just coming up and down, noticing how does that squat, how does that sit to stand feel? If I have any athletes on the floor, maybe you're doing some push-ups on the floor. Again, how does that feel? Again, I saw a bunch of people stand up, so I'm just going to give you one more option here. Doing a single leg balance test. Again, if you're able to, is another great assessment. Okay, good. So we've kind of got that self check-in. This is how the body's feeling right now. Let's jump into some of the self-release work. Okay, first one we're going to start with is rocking, swaying, and bouncing. Okay, so what these are is, if you've ever held a little newborn baby, every baby has what we call a vestibular preference. And sometimes that changes as they get older. Some babies like to be kind of this swaying motion. Some like to be bounced. Some like to be rocked, maybe more forward back. Okay, so I'm just going to invite you, whether you're seated or standing, to I just want you to sway. Just find a sway with your body. It could be forward back. It could be side side. Okay, it could even be in a circle, just whatever feels good for you. And I often feel that this changes for me. When I'm sitting, I like to find a sway forward back. I notice I do it when I'm stressed out. And when I'm standing, I usually like to do a sway side to side. So depending on your surface, how you're positioned, and I don't want this to be hard. I want this to be really easeful. So maybe it's kind of a smaller sway for some of you. And you're just noticing, like, how is the body feeling? This is just one way to help calm the nervous system by using this what we call this vestibular preference. Okay, and go ahead and relax. Okay, next, slip my headphones off. We're gonna come into a scalp rub. You're gonna take your fingernails, if you have fingernails, the tips of your fingers or your knuckles, whatever you have access to, and you're gonna give your head the most amazing head scratch that you've ever gotten. You're like, what is this doing for me? Yeah, and if you need some assistance with this, you can ask someone to give you a head scratch. You can use one of those head scratching tools. And I want you to notice what parts of your head feel tender, what parts of your head maybe make you squeal a little bit, what parts feel really good to do this too. Yeah. And then go ahead and just release that and relax and just notice if anything feels different. How does that whole area feel? We're stimulating some of our more superficial, what we call cranial nerves in this area. And anytime we can stimulate these cranial nerves, again, it helps settle and calm the nervous system to prepare us for movement. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, moving on to our jaw rub. It blows my mind how many of us hold tension in our jaw. As part of my work, I sometimes do intraoral work where I've got gloves on and I'm in people's mouths or I'm working on some outside of the jaw work. And I, especially during the pandemic where we've seen a skyrocket of people grinding and teeth problems, this can be a really, really helpful one for a lot of people. So I'm gonna have you take a soft fist just using your knuckles, and you're gonna start at the very tops of your cheekbones. And I want you to come just off of your cheekbones into the soft tissue. You should feel kind of more musculature here. You're then gonna find a drag going down your cheek towards your lower jaw. Let your jaw go slack as you do this. Okay, I'm just gonna give you my side so you can see what I'm doing. Kind of tracing the outline of my lower jaw outside of my cheek. And you're letting the jaw go slack as you do that. Okay. And just noticing, oh my gosh, one side feels way tighter than the other side. The slower you do it, sometimes the more it can do instead of doing a fast stroke, really giving again the amount of pressure that feels right for you. One of my cheeks likes a lot and the other doesn't like a lot. So I'm kind of varying that and I'm really slowly dragging down so that my tissues have time to adjust and to change. Sometimes the slower you go, the more time your tissues have to be like, oh, this is what you want me to do. Remember, we're trying to coax the turtle out of the shell. We're not poking the turtle, okay? So nice and slow and easy. Yeah. Okay. And again, that's a little bit more soft tissue related, but we have something called the trigeminal nerve. Sorry, I'm backwards, which has 3 branches here. When we do that drag down, we're stimulating that nerve, one of our cranial nerves, again to help calm the nervous system. I just want to explain the why behind some of these self-release techniques because they can get silly and weird and they're just different if you're not used to them. Okay, coming to an ear pull. We have a couple ways to do this. If you're able to grab your ear lobes, you're gonna grab your ear lobes. If that's hard for you to do, you can use your knuckles, putting them inside, superficially, inside of your ear holes. And regardless of whichever one you're doing, make sure you can see my ear, you're gonna pull that earlobe down and back behind you. It's a gentle tug. Remember, you're only tugging as much as you need to until your body says, I got you, I'm right here. You don't need to tug more than that. Okay, so gentle, gentle, gentle. This area where our ear is has a ton of insertion points. We've got many bones that come together here externally and internally. And we've got a lot of nerves going through that area. So again, a way to help calm the nervous system and to help release maybe some of that tension. Believe it or not, the ears are another place we store a lot of tension. You're going to do a similar thing, either using your knuckles to pull the ears up or using your fingers. You're now going to grab the top back part of your ear and you're going to pull up and back. Like, can you channel your inner elf? Okay. I was just trying to think of what sound an elf makes, but that's not a thing. So just channel your inner elf, hold the ears back, and then go ahead and release. Okay. Lastly, we can grab the whole ear, so you can stick a finger or a knuckle in, grabbing the back with your thumb, and you can just do these really nice ear circles. Only pull as much as you need to where the skin pulls back. And then go and release that. I often find that after I do those, I feel like I can hear better. I feel a release in my ears. Sometimes my ears even get hot because there's been a little bit of release. Okay, so yeah, just noticing, just noticing. Okay, moving a little bit more into the soft tissue. So we're going to work our way down here. So let's see, I have neck rub. Okay, we're going to start with an easy one and then I'm going to grab the ball. Yeah, actually, I'm going to leave this up. Okay, so you're going to grab the back of your neck. Again, using knuckles, soft fists if that's more accessible to you, or an open hand. For those of you that come to some of my classes during the week, this is going to look familiar. You're going to look down at your belly button. As you drag your hands along the side of your neck and down to the base of your collarbones, your head is going to look up. Pause at the top, slide your lower jaw forward, and you should feel a really nice stretch through the front of the neck. Yeah, make this slow, make this as delicious as you want. Grab the back of the neck, look down, drag, giving that a good squeeze there. Fingertips finish at the base of your collarbones, looking up, slide the lower jaw forward. Yeah, just do one more like that. Grab the back of the neck. Yeah, nice. I see some people helping out. Looking down, and then as you look up, squeeze and pull. Yeah, and I encourage, if there's sisters, caretakers, loved ones helping out right now, it's nice to do these on yourself so you can feel like, oh, this is the amount of pressure that feels good before doing it on whoever you're helping. Okay. Let's see, what do we have next? Herbs point. Okay, there's a point in the middle of our neck. And I just want to give a really big shout out to a colleague and a mentor of mine, Anna Hartman. I got a handful of these from her. She's got a whole website, Movement Rev. It's at the bottom of that slide that I showed you. You can check that out, and she's got a ton of self-release techniques on there. So this next one is from her. This is called Herbs Point. So we have a muscle, and I've talked about this in my neck workshop that I taught a while ago. So this muscle that comes down here is called your SCM, sternocleidomastoid. So if you turn your head to the side and you feel that muscle with your fingers, I want you to walk your hands about halfway down, okay, halfway down that muscle. And there's something called Herbs Point. We've got 6 nerves that run through this one point, this area. If you're able to very softly pinch, this is called a skin lift. You can take that, pinch your skin, and just lift it away a little bit. Again, stay on the gentle side, holding it out for a second. You could even slightly turn your head away from your hand, and then you're going to release. And you're going to do that again. Pinching that spot, pulling, and you can do it however you want. You could pinch or you can grab and pull. I kind of like the pinch, to be honest. Giving my head just a little toggle side to side and then releasing. Okay, if pinching is hard for you, you have another option here. I'm going to grab my medium-sized black ball. Your gorgeous ball would be great if you have one. Something with tack, because instead of doing a skin lift, we can hold the neck either in a rotated position or facing center, and I can take that ball, and this can be my tool now. I'm seeing some awesome release balls and tires out there, and I'm loving it. Oh my gosh, that's great, everybody. It looks really good. Okay, and all I'm doing with this ball, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, is I'm uh, gently pushing in and twisting that ball, and I can even add a head turn with that. Okay, yeah. And then go ahead and just pause for a second. Hopefully you just stayed on one side of your neck. And if you're able to turn your head side to side, wow, that was a big difference for me. I just want you to feel if anything changed for you. Do you feel like that released? Is anything easier? Maybe less painful, maybe less clicky. Maybe you don't notice anything at all, and that's totally fine. Okay. We would normally do this on the other side, of course, but for time purposes, we're going to keep moving. But again, those are really accessible ones for your neck. I'm just going to show you this next one. For folks that are on the ground, you can also, if you have a headrest behind your chair, you can do that too. I'm going to take this inflatable ball and I'm going to deflate it about halfway. If you're wondering why there's numbers and letters on my ball, that's for another workshop. Okay. This is a great neck release. So you were just lying down on the floor or seated in your chair with this resting against the headrest. The air allows the head to float, and I can find a really smooth and easeful cervical rotation, just meaning I'm turning my head from left to right. Okay. So this can be really nice. I can even keep my head on this ball, and I can do some of the skin lifts. I can do some of the other release work on this area. Using this as a pillow is just nice because it allows your head more freedom as opposed to a typical pillow that doesn't float and lift your head off of the floor. Ouch. So that's a really good. Okay. Okay, great. Moving on to the clavicle. Yeah, this is a great one. Back to my bare canister stool here. Okay, great. Okay, so this next one is a clavicle release. You can do this seated or on your stomach. I'm gonna briefly show both here. And let's see. I'm gonna switch back to my orange ball. It's a little tackier. I'm gonna move my mic so this hopefully isn't too annoying and loud for you all. Okay, so you're gonna take your ball, you or whoever's assisting you, and we're gonna start at the very I just want you to maybe first feel for this using your hands or your knuckles. So you feel your collarbone, okay, this bone that comes across here, and you'll feel how it ends. So you'll feel what we call the head of the clavicle, close to the center of your chest. This is a really important area because we have a ton of vasculature. We've got the brachial plexus that runs behind here, which is that whole nerve plexus that runs behind here. There's a bunch of other little nerves, part of the brachial plexus, where if we can create more room for those, we can have a more functioning shoulder. Okay, and I actually want you to move your shoulder as you palpate, as you touch that head of your sternum, and just notice what's going on. Mine is very crunchy. Mine sounds like it's walking on gravel right now. Okay, I'll be curious to see what it sounds like after. So just moving that shoulder back and forth, and how is that feeling? We want to create more room for this bone so that everything running underneath it and everything attached to it, being the shoulder complex, the neck complex, and the chest complex, have more space and more room to move. Okay, that's the why behind it. Let's just jump right into the release. You're going to take that ball and you're going to start at the sternum head. Okay, you have a couple of options here. The good news about this kind of work is there really isn't a wrong way to do it. Whether you're pressing in, so I'm taking both hands or knuckles, and I'm just squishing the ball into that area, okay? And I'm holding and I'm breathing into it. Maybe I do 1 breath with each press. I can also, if I'm ball on skin here, if I peel my shirt away, I can also do that same turning motion side to side, we want to start at this head of the sternum, and then we want to work our way out to the side. That's really the only rule with this one. Otherwise, you can't go wrong, okay? And then after you either press or you twist that ball, you're just going to take it, you're going to move it maybe an inch over, find a new spot. Start with a press, maybe start with a breath, and then you're going to twist. Okay. For those of you doing in a seated position, I want you to continue until you get to the very end of that bone, kind of finishing right at the top front corner of your shoulder. For everybody else, yeah, keep moving through that. I'm just going to show you the prone version, meaning you're on your belly. Make sure you've got a good, you're doing the exact same thing, except you're just lying on the ground. We're kind of taking the work out of it when we're on the ground. I start here. It's right under my my collarbone. I can move that arm up and down as I do this one. Sorry, let me back up. I can breathe into it. I can even move my body side to side. Take a few breaths. Take your time with these. These are really, really good releases. They can do a lot of good things for the body. And then I'm going to move to the next spot, and then to the next spot, and then to the next spot. Okay. And you're just noticing what parts are the most tender. What parts feel okay? What parts is it really hard for me to breathe into? And take an extra few breaths into there. Okay. There's a really tender spot for most people right in the front. It's going to be below your collarbone, right in the front, kind of from chest to the arm. And I'm going to invite you to throw in those places. We don't just have to trace the clavicle. We can also drop it down more into a pec release. Our pec major and our pec minor is those, it's basically our big chest muscles that come down at these kinds of angles, kind of down towards the center of our body. This is a really, really easy area to get restricted, because we sometimes use it, especially folks with spinal cord injuries, with cervical spinal cord injuries, because they're using the pec minor, which is a tiny muscle in here, as part of their respiratory muscles instead of their diaphragm. So this area can get really locked up and really tender. Okay, so again, whether you're using your hand, a ball, or you're on the floor, letting the ball do the work for you and just pressing into that area, this is a really good one. Okay, moving on, making sure I'm not missing anything. Great. We just have a few more here. So a viscera release. Again, you can do this seated or on your stomach. I'll show you seated first. So viscera is your organs. Where's my, I'm gonna size up. I'm gonna go to my slightly bigger ball, and I know I've got a black ball on a blue top, so hopefully you can still see this okay. And we're gonna do a very similar thing. Again, you can't really go wrong with this stuff. I'm gonna start with it in the very center of my chest. I'm gonna work in a clockwise direction around my body, doing basically exactly what we just did with that clavicle release. I'm going to press the ball into my body, and I'm going to try to breathe into that space where the ball is. I'm going to notice where it's tender. I'm going to spend an extra couple of breaths there, and then I'm going to work around. The reason we work in a clockwise direction is to aid with digestion. That's the way your digestion goes with your small and large intestines. Okay. And you would just work your way around. Remember, we've got your liver under your right ribs. So if it's tender in that area, that's okay. A lot of people have slightly inflamed livers. Okay. And you're just working around in a circle. You can even work down the very center of the stomach. I would say if you're doing that, move slower, move more gently. This is a very, very sensitive place for most people. I mean, we hold 75% of our immune system in our gut. Our gut holds a lot. It's where we hold emotions. It's also called our second brain for a reason, but it's probably one of the most ignored parts of the body, even in the massage world, even in the self-released world. It kind of feels like a no-no, like I got to protect my stomach, when really our stomach, our intestines, our liver, our kidneys all need movement. They need movement no different than our arm needs to move, than our neck needs to move. Okay, so giving those areas a little bit of love can be really helpful. You would do the same thing lying down. So lying on your stomach. And you would just be moving the ball around your body. So I would leave it, it's right now, it's right under my breastbone. I take a couple breaths. I maybe wiggle to the side. It's right under my left ribs. I take a couple of breaths. And I just keep moving it and moving it and moving it. You're going to hear some stomach sounds. You might have some memories come up. Okay, can be a really powerful area to work with. Okay, bear with me. We just have 2 more. Yeah, and I'm going to keep this kind of general. There are more specific releases. There's something called a cannonball release. No, it's not you jumping into a pool. And that's a little bit more specific with the upper left-hand corner of your abdominals. That's a good place to spend some extra time on if you've got your ball or your hands. We've got a lot going on in that area. We've got 2 arteries that come together, and we've got a bunch of nerves in that area. So spending more time in that upper left-hand corner can be really beneficial. Okay, coming into sideline, I'm going to switch the ball again. Or sorry, this one is, yes. So this one will, let me make sure I'm reading this right, will mainly just be done on the floor. If you have the kind of chair where you can wedge a release ball in between you and the armrest of your chair, you can certainly do these in a seated position. It totally depends on the kind of chair you have, how much space you have in the chair, and your position in it, okay? But if you're able to deflate a ball or grab a different ball and do some of these side bends and breathing over the ball, you can basically copy what I'm about to do on the floor. Okay, so coming more into a side lie position, you would have, again, I would recommend deflating the ball if it's about the size of mine. And you can either have a pillow under your head or you can just use your arm. You can also have a pillow under your knees. Knees will be in front of you just to help you stabilize. And you can just start with breathing. So this top arm can come over. In fact, I'm gonna bring this ball a little higher, just so that I really am trying to open up these top ribs, okay? I'm in a resting position. This should feel somewhat easeful here. And I'm focusing my breath on this top part, breathing into that. I can even add in some pinwheels where I'm circling that arm, and you might need someone assisting you for this. And if you're seated, you can certainly do this on your own. I'm just circling my arm. I'm opening and I'm breathing, okay? And you can move that ball, again, just like we did with all the other releases. Maybe you move it an inch higher, a little too high, or maybe you move it an inch lower, coming a little bit more into your lower side gut, and you do the same thing, okay? Some pinwheels and some breath work. I'm just gonna show you one more release here. This one, I don't use quite as often, but it can be really helpful for folks that are able to get down onto the ground. This one is really the only one that has to be done on the ground. Again, I would recommend like a medium-sized ball. I'm going to come back to my black one. This is what we just call a hip flexor release. Nothing fancy, and staying in line with everything we've been doing. We're going to put that right under our hip, kind of right at the very top of the quad. And I'm just going to place it right there, roll onto it. And then you're going to stay here and you're going to breathe. Remember, the more that you shift onto the ball, so if I shift onto that ball more, ooh, and that is tender for me, If I shift onto that ball more, I put more pressure on it. If you want less pressure, you just ease off of that ball. Okay. So this floor work can be really nice. I know that I've done a movement session with you all. I think that was at the end of last year. But you can get on the floor, and before you even do a movement session, you can do some release work. You're letting the ground and you're letting the ball do the work for you, which is actually my favorite part of doing this work on the ground, because you basically just lie there and breathe and feel into your body, as opposed to working and pressing and that kind of a thing. But doing them seated is also a great way to get in there. So that's it for all of the techniques. Let's just really quickly run through let's do a recheck-in, okay? So let's just start with a few shoulder shrugs. And you're just noticing what feels different. Maybe you worked the whole left side of your body today, and so maybe you're only gonna feel changes on the left side, and that's totally fine, okay? And then turning your head left to right. Well, that one got better for me. Did range of motion change? Did ease of movement or speed of movement change? Nodding your head up and down. Again, does anything feel different? Let's do some overhead arm raises, lifting up. Does anything feel a little bit more freed up in that area? Okay. Coming to our internal, external shoulder rotation. Does anything feel different for you there? More range, less range, more pain, less pain. Remember, not all of these are for everybody. If you hit something or something didn't feel good today, and all of a sudden the shoulder isn't lifting as high, that's good information for you to have, and maybe something else is going on in there. We can do our rotation, hands in front or across the chest, rotating left to right. For my standing athletes, you could be doing a sit to stand or even a single leg balance. And if I've got any athletes on the floor, you could be doing a push up. Okay. And you're just noticing, for all of those, how does that feel? And just sit with your body for a second. And I know we had to go through those quickly, and maybe you only did one side, but how are things feeling in general comparatively to the beginning? That was maybe just 25, 30 minutes of release work with a lot of me talking. If you had just 30 minutes of release work just for you doing release, it can go a long way. Yeah. So sensing into your body, I encourage you to play, to get curious, to explore. I always say wiggle more with this stuff. The more attention that you bring to your body and the more intention that you set, whether it be with your self-release work or your movement practice, the better the results are going to be, the better your movement's going to be, maybe the less pain you have. The outcome is going to be better, but it starts with body awareness, it starts with that curiosity, and it starts with wiggling around. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening today. I'll take any questions. I'm sure Franklin will hop in here.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, we have a number of questions.
Yeah.
First question, this gentleman says that he has limited range of motion in his neck, not due to any hardware. What would you suggest as a slow and incremental ways to increase that range?
Yeah, I would actually do the exact series we did today, where we start with the jaw. We did the scalp, we did the jaw, we grabbed the back of the neck, and we were doing the neck rub, and then Herb's point, remember that side of the neck, and then we were doing some rotation there. Those are all super gentle ways to reintroduce movement into a stiff neck. And then, if you wanted to make it more intense, you can add a really sticky ball, you can add bigger movements and that sort of thing. But that protocol we walked through today I feel like would be a good starting point.
Okay, great. Next question, this person is asking if you do any classes using a Theracane, which is, I guess, that Theracane massager.
Yeah, I actually have a Theracane. In fact, I think it's just over here. Oh, no, I think my partner has it. She must be using it. Yeah, it's just like this long plastic cane that you can hook around you and can hit some really good trigger points and pressure points in there. I don't teach any classes where we use the Theracane, um, but it is a good tool. Um, and it's the kind of tool where for especially to get the back of your body, we didn't do too much between the shoulder blades or lower back. I might attack that onto another workshop actually. But that's a really good start to get the back of your point. I will say the Theracane is a very small and hard um, tip to it, and all of its knobs are it's just made out of hard plastic for those of you that are unfamiliar with it. So if you're using the Theracane in any place that's extra soft, say your stomach or your neck, I would be very careful with, or even your chest, to again just really ease in with caution because the Theracane is definitely not soft and squishy.
Okay, great. All right, next question. What is the popping and cracking with head rotation? And I hope this question is not because there is hardware in their neck that is
Yeah,
producing that noise, but what is a popping and cracking with head rotation?
yeah. My rule with body sounds, be it popping, cracking, snapping, crepitance, sandy, grittiness, my rule with all body sounds is that two things. As long as there's no pain when you hear or experience or feel a sound like that, you're probably fine. What's really going on most of the time you hear all of those sounds is it means that that area, um, I'm gonna use a general sense. I'm gonna use the word dehydrated, and I don't mean that you're not drinking enough water. I mean more like that area of your body isn't lubricated. It's not lubricated with something called interstitial fluid. It's not lubricated with movement. I think you've heard me say in these workshops before the very corny phrase "motion is lotion," but there's a lot of truth behind that because when we're moving, the parts of our body that we move a lot are we bring more fluids to those areas, especially something called interstitial fluid between our connective tissue layers or our fascia. So typically what's happening when we're hearing any of those cracks or sounds is it's an area of your body that doesn't get that kind of movement often, and it's an area where there's either a muscle, a tendon, a ligament, an area of fascia or something that instead of gliding really smoothly over one another, it's kind of getting caught on something. We don't know exactly what. It's really hard to know in all of these areas and with the kind of sound. For the most part, it just means that it's kind of dehydrated. So I would say as long as there is no pain, that movement is fine with that sound. In fact, it probably means that we need to bring more attention, love, and movement to that area in general.
Okay. Next question. Do you have a lower back program or maybe some suggestions for lower back?
Yeah, we didn't really get to lower back today.
Maybe that'll be
I'll
our next session.
I know I should just do like a release session number 2 because there's so much good juiciness. I had to leave a lot of things out because I knew I wouldn't have time. Um, I'll just say quickly that apply what we did today to your whole back. You could lie on the ground and you can take this ball, or you can squish it against your chair behind you, and you can do some arm movements. Move it down an inch. Do some arm movements. Move it down to your low back. Wiggle on and off the ball. Okay, so if I'm lying on the floor and I'm wiggling on and off the ball. Again, especially for the low backs, we've got our kidneys kind of sitting superficially up against some of those muscles there. To not overdo it, to listen to your body. Um, but same rules apply. I would also say with the low back, doing the sideline release that we did today with the blue squishy ball on your side is a really good way just to start to access the low back because we're just coming into some rotation and we're breathing into those areas. But yeah, if you kind of apply the same things we did today and you work around mid, low, upper back, that should also work just fine.
Excellent. What releases are most supportive of rotator cuff health?
Yeah, the clavicle release is a really, really good one. The armpit release, kind of that, um, I wanted to say lung one because it's an acupressure point. That front of the armpit, kind of right in there, is really good for rotator cuff because it can help release just some of the holding tissue in this area when we're curled forward. And then I would also say, kind of what I just mentioned, taking this ball, squishing it against the floor or the chair behind you, so you'd be lying back, you're breathing into it, and then you're moving that arm up and down, kind of like a snow angel, or up and down in front of you. Move it down an inch, move the arm, move it down an inch, move the arm. Those will all be good for rotator cuff.
Okay. Next question. I have seen some people use a tennis ball. Is that too hard of a surface to do the programs that you outline?
A tennis ball can work. It is a little on the harder side, depending on the suppleness of your tissues and depending on what area you're working on. Like sometimes a tennis ball, well, even then, like for me personally, a tennis ball can be a little too much in some areas. Sometimes it's okay in part areas of my back. I would say it's a tennis ball is slightly erring on the harder side. Putting like a soft towel over it or a blanket over it would definitely help. But if you use a tennis ball and it feels great and you don't feel like things are recoiling and you feel like you can breathe into it, then go for it. But maybe start by putting a blanket over it because it is a little bit on the harder side of the spectrum.
Okay. Next question. What are the two spots on the outside back of the head about level with the bottom of the ears? Two
Yeah,
sore spots.
yeah. Those are um, really good spots to focus on. In fact, they even make um, there's a device out there that it looks like kind of two mountains that holds your head and targets that occipital ridge. We have a ton of muscles, and for people that are unsure, we're talking about this area right here. We have a ton of deep and superficial muscle attachments that attach to that. We even have muscles back here, and I talk about this in my, the neck workshop that I did. We have muscles back here that also help control your eye movements and your head stabilization during eye movements. We've got short story is we've got a lot going on there. So doing and like putting a harder ball. You saw me using this ball behind my head when I was lying down. If you wanted to use, I like sometimes to take a soft foam roller. If any of you have a nice soft foam roller and lying it horizontally and then moving your head side to side, and that will get that occipital ridge really, really nicely. You could also use a and play with that area. It's a good area to play with.
Okay. Last question. As with most people with spinal cord injuries, I have a nice gut. When you were showing the exercises on the stomach, how could I overcome the size of my waist to make an impact?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Two things. I would say I would say a couple of things. Sometimes it can be really helpful to come and where that weight is being held can be different for everybody. Sometimes coming in more from a side angle as opposed to coming more in from the front can be helpful because if more of that weight is being held in the front, you can still access those organs more from the side and pushing in. So you can kind of get the sides, maybe even the bottom parts, maybe even the top part, but more from those oblique side angles. Um, if that isn't working, I would just say you can err on the side of more pressure to get, if you're able to get onto your stomach so that the weight of the ground is doing the work for you. If you're having a hard time, if you're not getting enough pressure or you're not getting the right spot, because again of where that weight might be being held, and this is too hard, like I can't get enough pressure here, just getting on your belly and let the floor do the work for you, and or maybe try using a tennis ball, something that's just a little bit harder. Um, but what was I going to say? Yeah, I would say try those two things: side angle and then getting on your belly.
Okay, very good. That is all the questions that we had. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Once again, this presentation was made possible thanks to the Re Foundation and thanks to Rachel, who has been doing these every month for us and will continue to do so for the rest of the year. We're going to send a recording of tonight's presentation. It'll be in your inboxes tomorrow morning, and we'll have a couple of the slides that Rachel shared with you on some of these movements that she demonstrated. We'll have the links to the balls that she mentioned, and I need to get a percentage of the one that's named after me. I'm going to call that company and see what they have to say. And then also a shout out really to everyone who participated along with Rachel. It was great to see people have their balls ready, and even to the gentleman with the little tire. That was really great. So good job, Art. But once again, thanks, Rachel. Good to have you on again, and thanks everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you guys at the next presentation of Rachel, and we'll come up with some good stuff again.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's good to see you all.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thanks.